Well, good evening everyone. My name's Doug Chipman. I'm Mayor of the City of Clarence, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our annual general meeting for the financial year 2021. Could I ask those in the chamber to please stand for the council prayer? Almighty God, we humbly beseech thee to vouchsafe thy blessing upon this council. Direct and prosperous deliberations to the advancement of thy glory and the true welfare of the people of the City of Clarence. Amen. I'd like to acknowledge the Tasmanian Aboriginal community as the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on tonight. Pay respect to elders past and present, and also acknowledge their ongoing spiritual commitment to the land. Thank you. I do remind everyone this meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube, and what is said in this meeting is not protected by privilege. There is a link to the agenda papers on Council's website. I declare the meeting open and welcome the Alderman and our member of the public. I'd like to introduce the Alderman, my colleague, the Deputy Mayor, Alderman Heather Chong, Alderman Tony Mulder, Alderman Wendy Kennedy, Alderman Dean Newington, Alderman James Walker, Alderman John Pearce, Alderman Brendan Blomley, Alderman Luke Edmonds, Alderman Sharon Von Berto, Alderman Richard James and Alderman Beth Warren. On my right is the Council's General Manager, Mr Ian Nelson. We have a full house, so there are no apologies. Moving to item 5, confirmation of minutes for the 2020 Annual General Meeting conducted on the 7th of December. As circulated, be taken as read and confirmed. Thank you, Alderman Pearce. Seconded, Alderman Kennedy. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Now move to the annual report, which comprises two parts. Firstly, a report by myself, followed by a report by the Chief Financial Officer. My detailed report for financial year 2021 is included as the Mayor's message in Council's annual report, but I would like to touch on a few points this evening. 2021 was certainly a year for the new normal as we adjusted to the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. The importance of health and wellbeing in our community has never been more apparent as we witnessed a significant increase in the use of our open areas, tracks, trails, mountain bike facilities and sports grounds. The Foreshore Trail itself saw a record number of people making use of the trail, both before, during and after lockdown. Council continued to develop the trail to improve its amenity and longevity for many years to come. As our community began its road to recovery following the initial lockdown, we were pleased to provide support through our Community Recovery Grants Program. More than $55,000 was awarded to 18 community groups and not-for-profits for projects to help rebuild their resilience. Some rates, fees and charges relief was also available to those suffering COVID-induced hardship. The City of Clarence has continued to grow and thrive at a very rapid rate, with areas such as Clarence Plains experienced significant development, including a new shopping centre commenced and under construction at Glebe Hill. Over the course of the financial year, Council approved over 900 planning applications, an impressive 27% increase on the previous year. At the same time, we undertook a record $23.7 million capital works program to ensure that infrastructure keeps apace with the swift growth that's taking place in our city. Following the lifting of the nationwide lockdown and the gradual easing of restrictions, we're excited to get back into running some of our favourite events. While our Australia Day celebrations were pared back due to the smaller COVID-safe ceremony requirements, as always, I was delighted to welcome our city's newest citizens, while at the same time recognising the achievements of our community champions as part of the Clarence City Australia Day Awards. Our ever popular Jazz Festival returned for its 25th year, boasting exclusively a Tasmanian lineup of artists. Not only was this a fantastic event for our community to enjoy, but it also provided support for our local artists who are still reeling from the impacts of the pandemic. Council was also pleased to support the One Community Together hosted Change Fest on the road in Clarence Plains. The event acted as a significant gathering for people to learn, grow and celebrate the community as it was changing, and it was really great to see the community spirit blossoming in our city. Once again, our volunteers pulled through and continued to support activities right across the community. In an amazing show of selflessness and community spirit, our volunteer numbers have more than doubled over the past 2 years. Thankfully, we were able to hold our annual volunteer reception this year and thank those hardworking members of the community for their tireless commitment in making our city a better place. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Council staff for continuing to uphold the high level of professional advice and support that they reliably provide to both Council and the community. I commend them for their efforts over the past year, as well as for accepting a pay freeze which helped us to deliver a 0% general rate increase for their community. And of course, I would like to thank my colleagues, fellow aldermen, for another year of continued dedication, hard work and commitment in looking after our community. The annual general meeting is not only an opportunity for us to reflect on the previous year, but also to look forward with a little taste of what's to come. Our borders are about to open in just over a week, and with it we will have to learn to live with COVID-19. Tasmania has been very lucky so far, but we will now have to adapt. As a council, we are working very hard to ensure that we're prepared to ensure that our organisation and the community can continue to operate in this new reality. Next year also looks to be a busy one with our council elections set to take place in October. Local government elections are a great opportunity for our residents to immerse themselves in the democratic process and elect a council that will hold them in good stead for the following 4 years. I encourage everyone to get involved and cast their votes when the time comes. I'd like to conclude by saying thank you, and I look forward to a bright and exciting next year. Thank you very much. I'd like to now call on the Chief Financial Officer to present her report and then take any questions there are on our collective reporting. Thank you. Ms. Coleman.
I hope you don't mind that I read from my notes,
No,
that's
please
okay.
Do.
So thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to present Council's 2020 and 2021 financial statements this evening. First of all, I'd like to start with just the statutory element of this really important business process. In accordance with the Local Government Act, our accounts were lodged within the 45-day statutory deadline. They were lodged with the Tasmanian Audit Office. The audit was undertaken by the Tas Audit Office, and the Auditor-General has issued an unqualified audit report, which is something that we're all aiming for. I would like to thank the team at the Tas Audit Office for their collaborative approach to the audit strategy and working with council staff. And like the Mayor, I'd also like to thank all staff for their professionalism and diligence in ensuring a quarterly outcome. I'd like to just move on to some key messages, if that's okay. First of all, we have recorded a positive financial result. In the report, you will find that there are some key financial management indicators. These are required by the Tas Audit Office, but also by the Local Government Division. And one key financial management indicator is the underlying result. So while the profit and loss statement might have one number, what we're really interested in is the underlying result. And what that measure shows is Council's operational result from their own sourced funds. That is, it does not include any capital grants and the contribution of capital assets, which is something that does influence the profit and loss statement. The underlying result of 4.7 million does include, however, our share of interest in associates and also any transfers and derecognitions of assets. That was about 1.7 million. Also, it includes operating grants that we received during the year that may not have been expended in the year that the revenue was received. It's also in alignment with our long-term financial management plan. The Mayor talked about growth in the city, and this is quite evident in our financial statements when you get there and choose to have a bit of a look. And the financial statements show the growth in the city in several areas. And one example of this is in the profit and loss statement under a line item called user charges. Now, the user charges has a 26% increase on prior year. And what that revenue actually represents is revenue from our planning applications, our development applications and building and plumbing applications that were all actually recognised as revenue during the year. 26% increase on prior year is a fairly significant indicator of the work that's been going on in that space for council. Another indicator of growth is the $20 million worth of subdivision assets that were recognised in the financial year. In comparison, the prior 2 years were $7 million. The infrastructure that comes from subdivisions such as roads, footpaths, curb and gutter, street lighting that are now deemed council assets will have a future maintenance and oversight implications for our organisation. Continuing on with that theme, in the past 5 years, Council has received what we call contributed assets or subdivisions of approximately $52 million. The ongoing growth in the city will place asset renewal burden on our infrastructure that must be funded in a responsible and sustainable manner into the future. This can be achieved by ensuring that the asset renewal effort that is adequately funded and cash back, such as with our reserve that we currently have in place, which we record as the Asset Renewal Reserve. Delivering an underlying surplus is consistent with our long-term financial planning, and it supports the delivery of council strategic goals by investing in projects that seek to deliver benefits to the community. I just wanted to touch on our interest in TasWater. Council, like all other councils in Tasmania, are part owners of that significant government business enterprise. And in the year, TasWater revalued its assets in water and sewer, which resulted in an increase of Council's share of TasWater by $12 million to $161 million. That you will see that on our balance sheet. It's a significant asset for us. During the year, TasWater did pay a $1.1 million dividend in the financial year. However, this is actually less than their long-term forecast, which had been projected in the past, and we look forward to working with TasWater for our future dividends. With regards to cash, which is on our balance sheet, you will notice that cash balances were held steady and at the same levels as prior year. We have a significant investment in cash and investments of $67 million, and that is supporting $49 million worth of restricted funds. That's supporting an asset renewal reserve of around about $29 million, a public open space, which is cashback reserve of $3 million, car parking reserve also cashback of approximately $1 million, and then a number of other reserves as well. Anything that's unrestricted, of course, is what we consider working capital, and that's supporting the day-to-day operations of council. This cash balance is a direct result of long-term financial management and a strategy that was implemented 25 years ago that puts us in such a good position. On top of that, over $21 million was expended in cash on the delivery of capital projects. This is consistent with the prior year and reflective of the ambitious capital program that Council has fully funded and is being delivered by the Asset Management Group. On the balance sheet, you will also see that we currently have $25 million of capital works in progress, and these are projects, and once they're completed, will be actually transferred into our asset book in their relevant classes. So at the end of 30 June, there was $25 million in projects currently being progressed to completion. Again, a significant effort by our asset management team to be working on that level of investment in our capital program. I won't keep you much longer. So just to finish off with a few items, in relation to the audit, we're just putting a bit of a watching brief in the next financial year on things such as, of course, the changeable and highly changeable COVID environment and what that impact may have on council. In relation to the audit, we do have the local government division's financial statement template that we need to implement next year. And of course, what's coming up next year is, in terms of a watching brief, is the valuation of council's land and buildings, which are valued under the Valuer General's valuation. So that's coming up in the future. Each year, the Auditor General provides an audit completion report, and that talks about some matters that management need to pay attention to. And I just wanted to highlight two that have been rated at both a high and a moderate risk, and it's important that we understand what these are for council. So the two items are to have a raised awareness for our appropriate management of excessive leave balances. This is one that's a consistent theme each year, and we will keep on working diligently to get there and address that, but it continues to appear in their completion report. And the other risk is in the improvement of, in Technology One's One Council reporting and system controls in relation to a number of areas. They are risks that are being well managed, but it's around the reporting requirements that we have to get information out in a timely manner. I'd just like to finish off with Council's financial position. Council continues to ensure that the cycle of asset revaluation occurs within the requirements of the accounting standard. The core principle of the financial strategy is to ensure that Council is in a sound financial position to fund all activities and can secure current and future asset service levels that align with community expectations of a modern, progressive city. Council is very well positioned to support its strategic goals and deliver benefits to the community in a well-structured, principled and affordable manner. That's what I have to share with you this evening.
Any questions of either Alderman James?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I have a question for you first, if that's appropriate. In your report on paragraph 5, you say Council's City Planning Group worked overtime approving 916 planning applications over the course of the year, 27.4% increase on the 2019-20. Is the Planning Department able to cope? And given that we've had a recent departure from one of our senior planners to the Tasmanian Planning Commission, and I believe there's a lot of, I suppose, junior planners within that particular area, is it able to cope given the increase which we could expect in the next financial year, and that department being able to achieve its objective of meeting the appropriate statutory obligations?
Thank you, Alderman James. Mr Lovell, as our principal planner, are you able to comment on the resources available and the workload?
Through Mr Mayor, I have to say that the office is struggling at the moment, and we will be working on some statistics to demonstrate and to assess the amount of work covered by each of the individuals in the group, and we'll be reporting back to Council as part of the budget process.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The second question is to our Chief Financial Officer. You mentioned that there was a balance of about $25 million capital works projects that were sort of to be carried over into the 21-22 financial year. Have you any idea, and are you able to advise Council as to when Council would be able to start those projects that we have approved in the 21-22 financial year?
Through you, Mayor, thank you for your question. Capital works is a significant element of Council's operations, and I just would like to highlight that in the last quarterly report, we had reported in there that of the capital work projects that we are planning to deliver in the first quarter, 27% of those projects had already been delivered. So I think in terms of the time frame around that. As you would be aware, each project has its own life cycle and a time frame. If they were able to be delivered in a neat financial year, that would make this CFO very happy, but that's not the case. They go over numerous years. So in terms of identifying when they would be delivered, a really good source of that information is Council's quarterly report, which provides a listing of all of the capital works projects and an estimate of when they are likely to be completed. Now, some of those projects will be in various phases. They could be in a design phase, they could be in a construction phase. But whatever phase they're in, that quarterly report is a really good source of information.
Thank you. And my second question is in relation to, is the CFO able to advise Council of the balance of any internal loans that the Council has at the 30th of June 2021 and any external loans outstanding at the 30th of June 2021?
Thank you for your question, and they are excellent questions. With regards to the first one, internal loan balance, I'll have to take that one on notice because it sort of wasn't in the forefront of my mind. In terms of the external loan balance, if you in the annual financial statements, you can see that we have in there, let me have a look, interest-bearing liabilities. So we have a current and a non-current element to that. In the non-current element, there's $376,000, and in the non-current, there's $1,964,000. Note 30, which I'll turn to now because I don't know all of these off the top of my head, forgive me. We can have a look and see what that says. If you can indulge me for a minute while I flick through. Okay, so note 30, Alderman James, if you're there.
I've got the page,
okay,
thanks.
Fabulous. So you can see that we have a TasCorp loan of $2.34 million.
Yep.
And then we have a bank overdraft of $1 million and corporate credit cards with availability of $40,000. So that gives you a breakdown of our financing arrangement. TasCorp, of course, is the external loan which we took on to fund the LED lighting project, which is a 5-year interest-free loan.
And thank you, Mr Mayor, and you'll provide us with the...
Of course, in writing, probably as early as tomorrow, if that's okay.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Mr Figg? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Jim. I've got a few questions on the accounts here. Just for the general public, can you further elaborate at a later date if you wish? Other expenses, you've got $1.4 million there, and on page 70, you've got other payments of $34 million. When you've got amounts as large as that, I normally would put them in other. I would have them listed, seeing such substantial amounts. Can you glean any information on that?
So I'll start with, if you like, on page 2, which I'm talking about the financial statements. So the statement of comprehensive income shows other expenses of $11.5 million. Is that part of the question?
No, I'm relating to page 78, 5 and 12, other expenses.
Yes.
1.4.
Yep, so...
And there's no referral there.
Oh, okay, so in relation to that specific item,
Yes.
I can certainly take that on notice and give you a breakdown if that's okay.
And page 70, payments of 34.3. So is that relating to notes 35, is it?
Could you give me the note
Page
reference?
70,
No, the note reference. Sorry, the note reference. I don't have the annual report in front of me. Sorry, Mr.
35.
No, 35.
Yep, thank you. I'm working towards that. Okay, so that's the reconciliation of net cash inflow from operating activities to surplus. The line item you're talking about is the $28 million as the surplus deficit in terms of cash?
Some payments are 34,313.
Okay. I'll have to get there and take that on notice as well. I'm not quite sure exactly where you're referring to.
And a question of what's not in there. What amounts of money is council putting aside for future global warming?
I don't know of any specific funds identified for that, but I do know that we do have an environmental area in our organisation that is working on a various number of projects. Again, these are detailed in the quarterly report as to what they are in terms of coastal management plans and those sort of things. But in terms of a specific financial reserve or provision, there's no such thing at the moment.
Through the chairman, would council have an idea of what your liabilities may be around on, say, coastal management issues, sea level rise?
Do these relate to the questions that you've got coming up on notice, Mr. Figg?
No, it relates to what's in the accounts. So I'm just saying this doesn't appear to be in the accounts.
Look,
future liability risks.
Yeah, off the top of my head, I don't have the answer, but can we take that on notice too and give you a comprehensive reply?
Certainly. One more accounting question. Does council loan money to members of the public or organisations outside the council?
Could you tell me more?
Years ago, there was a loan to SAPRA down at South Arm of $50,000 that I can recall. I'm just wondering if council is still doing it.
I'm not aware of any loans currently on the balance sheet in relation to that, to any organisation or groups. Sorry? That's a grant, and we haven't actually issued it yet. Yeah.
So apart from grants, there are no loans outstanding?
Not as at the 30th of June, no.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Figg. I note that we have not received any submissions, so we now move to item E. The recommendation is that the 2021 annual report be adopted. If I could have a mover and a seconder. Thank you, Alderman Blomley. Second, Alderman Kennedy. There being no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7, reports of activities and achievements of council committees and authorities. I have none on notice. Are there any from the floor? Thank you. Sorry. There are no motions on notice at item 8. Questions without notice. We have 4 from Mr. Figg. Mr. Figg, I understand that the questions are in the agenda and that we will provide answers to those 4 questions in the draft minutes, which come out within the next 2 weeks and are publicly available, and you will personally receive a copy of those as well.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much, and I'd also like to thank the General Manager and some of his staff over there for the excellent service they've started to give us, and it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Mr. Figg. Item 10, questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? In that case, item 11 is closure of the meeting, and I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much.